Hey, hi. So, welcome to the fourth part in this series of lives, Demystifying Mindfulness and Meditation. So, anybody who's watched the previous ones will know that I have been using a particular graph here as a framework for explaining mindfulness and meditation. So in the first session, we talked about the framework and how about mindfulness and meditation can be thought of as on a kind of a scale. So rather than being discrete things, they're kind of like a family of tools and techniques that bring us from having a full mind, overthinking, out of control, stressed, panicky, even mind, all the way down then through to an empty mind. And that's what we're going to be looking at today, the empty mind, unfocused meditation. So we looked in the second session at the second step in this, which was everyday mindfulness. So we had a look at the full mind. We then had a look at everyday mindfulness and how everyday mindfulness is about reducing the amount of things we're thinking about, and how coming back to the present moment and our sensory experience is a really good way to do that, to reduce what's happening in the mind and really start to take control of our thoughts, and how mindfulness is a really great tool for doing that. Last week, we then looked at focused meditation, and we talked about all the different ways that we can use either an object, an activity, a phrase or a mantra, or maybe even like a guided meditation to really concentrate and focus on one thing and one thing alone. So in the picture here, it's a flower, but we talked about candle gazing, we talked about walking meditation, and we also talked about breathing, and we're going to be talking a little bit again about breathing today. So what we're talking about today is unfocused meditation. And this is the type of meditation that I love to do. And really, I think, it's great to kind of do a focused meditation and even just everyday mindfulness. All of these things will help. But going back to the framework that I've been using, and I'll just pop that out a bit larger, going back to this framework, for me, the further we can bring ourselves along this line to the empty mind, and the more time we spend in unfocused meditation, also in focused meditation and in everyday mindfulness, the easier it is for us to take control of our thoughts. So it's like this is actually kind of a set of skills that we're using to start to take control of what we're thinking about. So instead of being woken at 3 a.m. with a crazy chaotic brain and we can't switch our thoughts off, these kind of tools and techniques and learning mindfulness and learning meditation and getting used to doing them and doing them more and more often enables us to switch our thoughts off at will and to become more consciously in control of what we're thinking about. So that's the purpose, and that's why I believe that these are incredibly valuable tools for modern living. So let's have a look here. So unfocused meditation, where we're flatlining the brain and we're literally not thinking about anything at all. Really quite a tough place to get to, I'm not going to lie. Let me bring on here now the 3 things I wanted to talk about to do with unfocused or pure meditation. The first thing is actually how we need to have a strict ritual around it, and I'm going to go on in a minute to the ritual that I'm going to use. But I think for me, with ritual, there's something about when we have like a muscle memory or a body memory, and we can go back to a particular kind of like way of the body being, almost like if we have a habit of slumping in a chair, then our body will naturally slump. We can teach the body to sit up straight, and we can teach ourselves to have a straight back again, and we can make that the more dominant kind of muscle memory, if you like. With unfocused meditation, pure meditation, we're going to use a set of rituals. We're kind of training ourselves to this way of thinking, and so we're going to use some strict kind of set of steps that we're going to use. And what happens with that is when I start to do kind of like the first step in the process, my brain already starts to calm down because it can see, oh yeah, we're starting that thing. We're gonna be meditating. But I'll talk about the ritual in a moment. The thing I wanted to just make a point of saying here is that new skills take time, and so people often say to me, "Oh, I've tried meditating and I can't do it. It's impossible. I can't stop my thoughts. I can't stop thinking." But new skills, they take time. So if you think about how many sessions, or maybe you don't remember how many sessions it took you to learn to ride a bike or to write, even just to write. And my belief is that if we taught children to meditate in schools, the world would be a much better place, because it's a skill that once we've learnt it, we know it, a bit like riding a bike. You can't unlearn how to meditate. So really, it's just about, if meditation is something you're interested in, it's just about making that commitment to learn this skill. And so sitting in meditation once and not getting very far, you're not going to get very far. We need to practice. It actually takes repetitive practice and perseverance to get to a place where we can do this at will. So now I'm going to talk about the strict ritual that I have been taught, and I'm teaching it a slightly different way to the way that I've been taught it. But I think I said last time, and actually let's just go back just briefly back onto this slide here. So I talked about how, as we start to move from focused meditation to unfocused meditation, there are kind of a number of different meditation kind of types that you might have heard of that kind of start to cross this line then and come across from a focused meditation into an unfocused place. And that's almost the aim of what these types of meditation are doing. So the three specifically that I've mentioned before and I want to mention again today are Zen, Vipassana and Transcendental meditation. So you may have heard of these. They may be meditations you've tried. They may be meditations you're interested in trying. But the method that I'm going to be teaching you today is kind of similar conceptually, in that what we're going to do is we're going to go through a series of steps to reach a really, really pure meditative space. So let's go on then, and I'm just going to bring up now, let's have a look, the slide that starts to show the ritual or the series of steps that I use to get into a unfocused meditative place. So I'm going to take these in sets of 3. So I call these the 9 S's, and this is where it differs slightly to the way that I was taught it. And I was taught it at the Open Pathway Retreat Center over a week. So they teach pure meditation in silence there. It's absolutely wonderful. You can spend a whole week really immersing yourself in the center, in the space, in the peace, in the quiet, learning and practicing meditation. And I can honestly say that's something I highly recommend doing. It was incredibly, absolutely invaluable for me. And really made a difference. I've subsequently been back and I've trained in how to teach meditation to people, and this is what I've subsequently developed as a way of explaining it. So the first 3 steps there: stretch, sit, and state. So what I want to kind of draw your attention to here is that perhaps we've come to meditation, we've maybe got a full mind. We've maybe got quite a busy mind. We're thinking about the day ahead. Or maybe we think about the day that's just passed, because meditating in the morning and the evening are great things to do. So our mind is full, perhaps, and our mind is busy. And we want to then actually start to calm the mind and to stop thinking about things. So stretching, and I use a very specific set of stretches. They're actually available on my YouTube channel, and there's a link to them from my website, cosmicteapot.co.uk/resources. A full set of full body exercises that involve going through a very specific kind of set of exercises. It's really good to do the same stretching every time. So coming back to that idea of following a specific set of steps, so the brain starts to go, oh, we're going to meditate. If we stretch slightly differently this day to that day, the brain's not quite so sure what's going on. So sticking to the same stretching is really important. Feel free to check out the stretching video that I do. It takes about 5 minutes to do those stretches. So we do those stretches, and what they're kind of doing is they're actually bringing us into a place of kind of mindful awareness of our body. So it's almost like a bit of everyday mindfulness at this stage. So the stretching is like we're starting to be mindful of the body. We're stretching the body over, really stretching the body out. And as we're doing this, we're stopping thinking about all the things that we might already be thinking about. So by bringing that conscious awareness into a mindful activity like stretching is a really, really good way of starting to bring the brain in and stop the brain being so out and all over the place. So we also, after we've done our stretching, so stretching is the first thing in this sequence. The second thing we will do then is we'll sit. So we'll actually sit in meditation and find a seat. And so there's a couple of things here. And when I was taught and when I teach people meditation, there's quite a few little different bits and pieces to be aware of here. But I'm going to explain today the key things. So the first one is that the palms of the hands and the soles of the feet are not touching. So we have so many receptors in the palms of the hands and in the soles of the feet, that when they're touching, there's quite a lot of kind of almost input interference. And so really with meditation, what we're trying to do here is we're gradually coming in, we're reducing all of the external inputs. So we're just literally taking all of the external inputs away. And then going back to the idea on the graph, it's like as we come into mindful awareness, we're starting to have less external inputs. As we come into focused meditation, we're really having just one input. And as we're coming into unfocused meditation, we're trying to have no inputs at all. So yeah, no touching of the palms of the hands or the soles of the feet. The other thing is to have a really straight back. So to sit with a very, very straight back. So this can either be getting used to sitting in a good position and getting really, really good posture and getting really good at finding yourself a good way of sitting. It could be that you sit with your back against a wall. There's nothing wrong with that at all. It's really important to have the back straight though, and that's for energy flow through something called the chakra system that you may or may not have heard of. But essentially our energy flows up and down the spine pretty much, and we have a lot of electrical impulses up and down the spine. When the spine isn't straight, then all of that is slightly more compromised and just a little bit more sticky. So a really straight back is really important for meditation. And I've got a wonderful meditation stool that actually keeps my back in exactly the right place, and it has me off the floor by about that much so that my legs can naturally sit gently. So we've started off by stretching. So we've stretched, we've now found a seat, we've sat down, we've got comfortable with palms not touching, feet, soles of the feet not touching, and a straight back. Sometimes people say, what about if I can't sit low on the floor? If I want to sit on a chair, that's absolutely fine. Again, make sure you have a straight back, that the palms of the hands aren't touching, and that the soles of the feet aren't either. So that could be either by putting the feet out in front of you and having the toes to the ceiling and the soles of the feet facing away, or it could be by crossing the feet at the ankles, so that the soles of the feet are facing out to the sides. So stretching, then sitting, and actually there's something else about sitting, which is that, and this feels it's a really important step, and actually again it's one of the things I learned when I was away learning, is to have a little blanket, have a cover, so to wrap ourselves in something. And when I was actually on the course myself, gosh, I don't know, about 8-10 years ago, something like that now, when I was on the course, somebody else said, but surely not in summer. So in summer it would be too hot for a blanket. But the point is that there's two reasons for having the blanket. One is that when we sit for a long time, so it could be that we end up sat in meditation for an hour, our body temperature can drop quite dramatically when we're totally still and unmoving. So actually, you might think it's perfectly warm out, but to have a blanket just ensures that you don't drop temperature to a point that's unconducive to meditating or anything. So yeah, so having a little blanket wrapped around you. But the other thing is that if we're going to be sat in meditation with our eyes closed, which we are going to be, so with our eyes closed in meditation, it can actually feel a little bit vulnerable if you're in a room with your eyes closed, sat in meditation, dropping to a really, really deep place where you've turned off all the external inputs and you've gone right in. And actually having this blanket, it really does help you feel just a little bit less vulnerable and more comfortable and secure. So a really important part of this ritual for me. So going through the stretching, sitting, getting a really comfortable seat with a straight back, and then popping the blanket just around my shoulders and also one across my lap. So those are two important steps in the sit process. Okay, so sitting, and then the next one in this preparation stage is state. So we're going to state an intention. And so, we're just going to really think about, so I'm coming to this to this meditation and being mindful really about, why am I here? What am I even doing here? Why am I meditating this morning? So maybe I'm feeling discombobulated. Maybe I want to just calm myself down. So my intention this morning coming to meditation is just to let myself calm down and settle. That could be your intention. You could be struggling with a big decision in life at the moment. It could be that you're really trying to work out what to do about something. So it could be that your intention for this meditation is to get some clarity, to help kind of like tune everything else out, so that actually in this meditation, by the end of it, having really quietened the mind, you might be able to find some clarity around this decision you're trying to make. It could be to generate loads of love, to send out around the world. There could be all sorts of different reasons why you're coming, but to state an intention for your meditation. And so these three things, the stretching, the sitting, and the stating, are all kind of mindful. So we're kind of coming into a mindful place where we're mindfully aware of the body, we're mindfully aware of our seated position, and we're mindfully aware of why we're here. Like, what are we doing here this morning? So this is all kind of almost everyday kind of mindfulness. that we're doing. But going back to that original scale, we can see how it's actually starting to calm the mind already, and bringing the mind back to a place where it's thinking about less things. So the next 3 steps in the meditation sequence are actually kind of almost like focused meditation. So in that, almost kind of like as we're coming to this empty mind place, even in this meditation sequence, we're kind of almost moving across this chart. So let me just come and have a look now back onto here. So actually, I'm going to pop that out larger. So the next 3 things we're going to do, we're going to slow, settle, and start. So start is actually starting the meditation. And so you can see there's 5 steps before we even start meditating. But this goes back to that ritual, the ritual of doing one thing after another, telling the brain. So by the time I've stretched, I've sat, and I've stated my intention, I'm actually already starting to feel quite peaceful and calm. The first next step is to slow, and this is the breath. So we're going to slow the breath. And a breath, if you've ever watched any of my other videos, you might know that I teach a lot, is the reset breath. And that's just 2 big, deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth, sighing all the air out. So, and out. And again in. And out. And when I'm at this point in my meditation practice, those are the breaths that I use. So the slow bit here for me is slowing the breath, and I use the reset breath. But other people use different breaths. And so the important thing is to have a ritual, to have a sequence, and to do the same thing each time. So it doesn't matter if you do my stretching, doesn't matter if you do my breathing, but stretch, breathe. So at this breathe point, I think one of the focused meditations we talked about last time was actually breathing in for 4 and breathing out for 7. So breathing in for 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, breathing out for 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that kind of elongates the out breath, because the out breath then becomes longer. And actually, that's a really great way of slowing the breath, calming the breath down. So slow is slow the breath. So slowing the breath down and gradually starting to come to a more peaceful place. And actually, when we've got a lot of thoughts in our head, studies show that we are often in a panicky, breathy place. We're actually breathing quite fast, quite shallow, and from the top of our lungs. So that's slowing the breath. Actually is a really calming thing to be doing. And again, going back to the focused meditation, breath meditations and focusing on the breath is a meditation in itself. So at this point, we're actually almost, so the first 3 steps were kind of like a mindfulness, everyday mindfulness. We're now coming into actually, before we get to an unfocused meditation, we're kind of going through some focused meditation steps. So slowing the breath. The next one is settling the body. And so being aware of what is, and again, going into Zen, Vipassana, transcendental meditations, this kind of breath awareness and the state of our being awareness. So settling into the body and just feeling how the body feels, noticing any bits of tension, kind of almost maybe bringing a little bit more tension to that place, and then relaxing and releasing and letting all of the tension go. And feeling ourselves just really settling and landing and letting go of all the tension in the body. So slowing the breath, settling the body, being aware of the breath, being aware of the body. As often by themselves, these are focused meditations, and they're absolutely beautiful. So even if you don't go on from this place and you just get to here, this is a brilliant self-directed, focused meditation sequence. So then we're going to come on to start, and there's lots of different things here that we can do in terms of kind of the type of meditation that we might do here, but we're going to start by using now a phrase. So we've used the breath, we've used the body awareness, we're now going to use a phrase just to come into a really peaceful place. And the one I'm going to propose that you start using as you start to practice this or try this, if you're going to give it a shot, is to use I am peace. So as we breathe in, we think of I am. As we breathe out the word peace. Peace. I am peace. I am peace. And so again, this is still really, we're kind of in a focused place. We're focusing on something. We're focusing on the words, I am peace. But the magic here happens as we sit in this place, as we settle more and more, and we drop all of the external inputs, and we get more and more used to this, and we persevere with this practice, we get to a point where we can drop the words, we can drop the phrase, we can drop the breath awareness, we can drop the body awareness, and we drop all awareness. And we come to a place of total peace. I kind of call it suspended animation, or sitting in the primordial sea of oneness. And that all sounds a bit grandiose, but there's an amazing place that we reach when we get to that place that we really are incredibly still and incredibly settled. And we've actually stopped the brain thinking about anything. Those moments of peace are absolutely incredible. And it's a peace that's always there. It's our ability to access it that changes. And going through these sequence of steps, becoming more mindful, becoming more focused, gradually leads us to a place where we can actually drop into that real depth place, that real deep, deep peace. So it's not rocket science. It's a sequence that we're going to follow that's going to take us to a place where we can become incredibly meditative. And then from that meditative place, we can actually drop all thoughts, all awareness, and we can actually start to meditate. And that's a beautiful thing to do. So at the end of our meditation, we'll reach a point where we feel that we're ready to stop meditating. We're ready to get up, get on with the rest of our day. The final 3 steps, quite simply. The first one is to say thanks, say thanks for the meditation. Thank you for any clarity that you got, for the discombobulation or the kind of the recombobulation, to be grateful for the settling, for the calming, for the ability to take this time. A lot of gratitude usually comes up for me at the say thanks part, just not even necessarily to do with the meditation, but just gratitude in general. And a gratitude practice is a lovely thing to have as well, where each day you think about things to be grateful for. So that's a lovely time to do that. And if you're meditating once or twice a day, absolutely brilliant to bring gratitude in there. So saying thanks. The next one is then stopping the meditation. And so we've actually been into a very different kind of place. And so there's some important things here about grounding and bringing ourselves back. So a couple of those big deep breaths again, or whatever breath that you were using. So just as a bit of a punctuation at the end of the meditation. And also rubbing the hands together, rubbing the face, and kind of feeling the feet on the floor. And all of those are really about grounding us back into reality and coming back from where we've been, which is arguably in an altered state of consciousness. So coming back into a place where we need to be aware and we need to actually be able to use our brains and think again. These little grounding practices, so rubbing the hands together, rubbing the face, feeling the feet on the floor, they can reground us. So that's what we do when we stop the meditation. And the final thing here is store. And so the chakras open and close in response to what's going on in the world. And without getting too mystical today, because today is all about demystification, the storing part is purely to just imagine a roll of blind coming up the front of the body, bringing all of that beautiful energy that we've just cultivated in our meditation practice, bringing it in and bringing it all back to ourselves, zipping ourselves up and zipping all of that energy in. And that then brings us to the end of the meditation. And at this point, you can get up from your seat and go about your day. But this sequence is important, and it's hopefully something you can make a note of or come back to this video, because these videos will be saved, to try this for yourself and see how you get on. I'd love to hear from you if you get stuck at any bits, if you've got any questions, if you want to come and have a session on Zoom or in person here in the cabin to go through this in a bit more detail. I'm happy to pass on details. In fact, I'll put a comment on the YouTube version of this with a link to the Open Pathway Retreat Centre where they teach pure meditation there. But these are really the steps. So to go back just one slide now into here to look at. So unfocused pure meditation, it's all for me about the strict ritual, whether it's pure meditation, as I've just taught you, and that sequence of steps, or whether it's Zen, Transcendental, or Vipassana, the steps that they use. It's all about having a ritual and having a sequence and following it and sticking to it and persevering. New skills take time. But the final point I want to make about unfocused and pure meditation is that the benefits are absolutely huge, absolutely huge. And so, yeah, when people say to me, oh, I find meditation too hard, it's too difficult, I can't do that, I prefer to have a guided meditation or whatever, I always feel a little bit sad, because it's like, actually, it is just a skill, and it's about perseverance. It's about keeping on going and keep trying. But as we then do that perseverance, we get to a place that just even in our everyday, we can actually get more control over our thoughts, because the more that we come along this scale and get used to doing everyday mindfulness, focused meditation and unfocused meditation, the more control we start to get over our thoughts, and the more our thoughts are in our control and at our whim rather than out of control. the monkey brain, or the toddler mind, as it's otherwise referred to. So hopefully that's given you a good insight into unfocused meditation and why it's beneficial and why it's different to focused meditation. And as I said right from the outset, to me, even though there is, everyday mindfulness, mindful or focused meditation and unfocused or pure meditation are slightly different. They are actually all on a scale, and the point of them from a scientific perspective and where the benefits really come from in studies, and there are so many studies that show the benefits of meditating on our emotions, on our body, even on our whole health and well-being. It's this stretching and it's this pulling down and it's this getting more and more control that is really beneficial for us. So yes, wishing you a great week. I hope any of you that have stuck with me to the end there have enjoyed it. Next week, the final session is going to be on remystifying mindfulness and meditation. So we're going to look at a little bit more of the mystical aspects of mindfulness and meditation, and talking about that just to end this little series of lives. So wishing you a great week. Thanks for joining me, and any questions, don't hesitate to get in touch.